Need a fresh new haircut? Check out The Shop, located in Lehigh Acres, Florida. That's The Shop, DASHOP. Check them out on Google.
Welcome to another episode of The Real Paul Show, where artists share their heart about their passion for what they do. Take a moment to look over the episode's description to familiarize yourself with available links, as they will be mentioned throughout the podcast. And now, here's your host, Paul Bice.
Hey y'all, and welcome to another episode of The Real Paul Show. I'm your host, Paul, and today we're going to be having Eddie Lam from Canada on the show. He's going to tell us about his music career, that he has really just been into music since he was at a very young age, and he does a lot of good work with the community in music, and his heart is in music being a community connection. So take a listen to this show, enjoy it. But before we get into that, I just want to take a moment to thank some people. First of all, I want to thank you for being here and listening. I know that it takes a little bit of time to listen, but it shows me that you have the same passion that I do in music, and that makes me so happy that you're here. Secondly, I would love to thank my buddy and friend and brother, Scotty DeYoung, for giving me some pointers on podcasting, and I appreciate him coming alongside and helping kind of coach my way on my podcast. He is an announcer for the races. He goes to various tracks and does the announcing from the announcer's booth. And he also has a podcast called The Announcer's Booth Podcast. It's awesome. It's very cool. You go there, you listen to it, and if you don't know anything about racing, you will learn. If you do know something about racing, you will love it because he's so passionate about his racing. I want you to check him out. Again, that's The Announcer's Booth Podcast. And thirdly, I would like to thank The Shop for contributing to this show. Also, I would like to thank Anchor for being there for me and allowing me to use their service to release these podcasts. So without any further ado, here is Eddie Lam. Eddie, I turn this over to you. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eddie Lam. I am a Vancouver, Canadian-based musician, educator, singer-songwriter, musical composer, all that crazy stuff. I'm also an online personality on TikTok and YouTube and Twitch. And it's great to be playing music to all you beautiful people out there.
Wow, my friend, it sounds like you are a very busy man with a lot of things that you do. So the very first question that I like to open up this interview with is, what drew you to music? What affected you deep inside for the first time?
So the first time I ever got into listening to music, as far as I can remember, I remember having this old cassette tape that had a bunch of songs compiled together. So my parents had these mixtapes, and one of the first memorable songs that I could recall was Michael Jackson. Beat It was on that tape. And so I'd be listening to that constantly because we all know it's a very catchy song. It's one of Michael Jackson's early hits that exploded across the world. And it's just a guitar riff, the guitar riff, Michael Jackson's aggressive vocals, and of course, Eddie Van Halen's infamous solo in the middle of that song, too. Who could ever forget that? But of course, giving credit where it's due, one of the guys from Toto did that opening riff of that song as well. So you have two superstars that collaborated on Michael Jackson's Beat It. And of course, being a kid as well, growing up, knowing that there has been a good collection of vinyls in my parents' living room. One of the cool ones, if you guys enjoyed this movie growing up, the first Ghostbusters soundtrack was on there. We had the Ghostbusters soundtrack on vinyl, and of course that was everyone's favorite theme song. With me growing up as a kid watching the Ghostbusters cartoon religiously, who could ever forget that theme song? So of course that's how I got into listening to music as far as I can remember. But playing music was such a very different ball game itself. So my sisters took piano lessons. I got two older sisters, so they took piano lessons. And when I saw them play the recital, I was like, wow, this is actually so much fun. I know they must be nervous but I actually want to do this too. I want to try this out and see if it's something I can get into. So I asked my parents if I could take piano lessons, and they said, yeah, why not? Let's give it a shot. And that was the best decision I've ever made. Usually with most Asian parents, they always, kind of force their kids into playing piano. But for me, this was all by choice. It was all my own personal decision, my desire to want to play music. And I'm so glad I did that, because my piano teacher, actually, she was one of the most strict piano teachers, but she was a very helpful one at that too. So it's not like, she's going to scare you kind of deal, but when she knows there's something you need to work on, she's going to point that out, and she always makes sure that you do a good job at it. And I think this is the kind of encouragement I feel that every music student needs in order if their goal is to do better at their instrument. This is the kind of training that they do need, just to know what are some things to overcome. That way it's not a barrier. It's going to be something you enjoy doing more, rather than being a challenge every time.
Okay, Eddie, we'll continue this conversation right after the break.
If you enjoyed what you heard here, please consider supporting the podcast with a monthly contribution. To contribute, just click the link in the description of this episode or visit The Real Paul Show on Anchor FM.
You were trained on the piano first?
That's right.
And do you play anything else?
Yes. So later on in life, believe it or not, I started taking violin lessons when I was 10. It was only just for a few years, but of course, violin was had its moments with me. But when I got into high school, I fell in love with the guitar and the bass and the drums, because I grew up listening to heavy music too, right? So I was into like Guns N' Roses, I was into Nirvana, right? I was into Smashing Pumpkins, Weezer, early Soundgarden, all that kind of stuff, right? And that's what got me wanting to play electric guitar more. But I think the one movie that got me into wanting to play rock for sure, that hooked me in when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, was Wayne's World. Because you see Tia Carrera as a character, right? She was in the band called Crucial Time, right? And the opening scene when they introduced her was watching her play at a nightclub in Chicago, right? And here she is rocking it out in front of this big audience. I'm just like, man, this looks like something I want to be at when I become an adult. And I know that her character is of Chinese descent, but of course in real life she's not. But it still had this really cool, awesome influence on me, knowing that, hey, it's cool to see like other Asian characters, other Asian people getting into heavy rock music, not just because I know, at least, with my parents' generation, it's always, about the Beatles, right? The Rolling Stones and all that. But I mean, for me, like, seeing something a little more edgier than that. Always big props to the Beatles and all those classic rock artists, right? Big props to them. Great people, great music. But I always love something on the edgier side too, right? So something like what they did on Wayne's World, that's kind of my kind of scene too. And yeah, so as a teenager, it's cool to really, get more into that, right? Although the weird thing is though, because I was in high school band, of course, I didn't have access to a guitar yet, right? Didn't have access to playing drums yet. So the only instrument that was available that they had room for was the clarinet. So I had to play the clarinet in high school band. But it's still a great instrument that I give so much respect for too, right?
Yeah.
But of course, when it came to guitar and drums, that was through the School of Hard Knocks, because I had no formal training with those instruments whatsoever. So that I just kind of learned on my own. But I also just learned some tips from other friends here and there. But before you know it, all it took was some good practicing. And then when I turned 18, a couple of my high school friends and I, we were just in a band together. Didn't get anywhere, of course, but it's just like a interesting, fun experience to know what it's like to play in a group and just writing our own stuff. Even though it sounded ridiculous as hell, but it's still a fun time regardless.
Exactly. And it's all about fun. It's all about just being in the moment.
It is. Oh, definitely.
What does music do for you? Deep inside, what does it do for you?
Well, honestly, a few things, but I think there was a common theme to it. What it does for me, it entertains me, first of all, right? It entertains me. When you think about your favorite artists, you think about the songs they've written, the songs they composed, and the ones you're so drawn to. I can honestly say the songs that I'm drawn to, I'm sure so much blood, sweat, and tears goes into the stuff that I enjoy. Of course, not just the artists, but the producers, the audio engineers who are going behind the scenes with all that stuff too. But when you recognize the effort and it's hooked you in somehow, that's the magic it brings. And that is something that it just entertains you so much that if you play that song over and over again, there's something to be said about that song. So that's the one thing it does, you know. So with me as a listener, it brings me in and brings that some sort of indirect connection with me and the artists of the songs. So that's one thing it does for me as a listener. Now, with me as someone who performs music, I think what it does for me is that the same thing back to people who watch me play. It helps me connect with the audience as well. You know, when I play live, whether if it's open mic night or if it's a jam night or if I'm playing an actual gig, even if one person comes up to me and said they've enjoyed what I did, I think it's totally worth it. And that one for sure. But I think what music also does for me too is that it really defines a good majority of who I am as an individual. And that part of it is bringing people together. Because one of the things I love to do besides playing music with my bands, because I got a few bands, right? So that's why I say bands. I just love to put on shows myself too. I love organizing things. Nothing on a very, very, very large scale, not like a festival or anything like that. But let's say, you know, like I just book a venue, I get like a few bands besides my band on the bill, and you know, we just have one all the time. And so what all these things I've listed, these factors, is they all relate to the common theme of community. And that's what I truly am all about when it comes to live music. Because, you know, oftentimes, I mean, of course, you know, everyone always has that dream of being the big rock star, of course, right? I mean, you know, right. I mean, I had my fair share of experiences where I've played a very large scale show for sure, green room and everything like that, right? You know, I've had that rock star treatment before. Although, you know, mine's very minimal compared to some big stars who do this every day. But even then, you know, if I was ever at that big multi-million-dollar level, you know, I think I still would want to do something to just bring people together, you know, empower other musicians to, you know, who nobody may not know about. And this is only because I just love to get to know people, just like hear everybody else's story, right? Like, what's their musical journey like? And I think the community part of things is what really does excite me a lot too. Going back to, you know, how even like from humble beginnings too, with me, like I went to open mic nights religiously, right? I've been to jam nights religiously too. Those open mic jam nights have been the most fun moments of my life too. Even starting from when I turned 19, legal age is 19 in Canada, just so you guys know, to go to bars and stuff. But I started going to open mics and jams when I was 19, and it opened this whole big world for me of exploring different kinds of jam nights. So I went to blues jams when I was 19, you know, and I didn't have too many backgrounds in blues, right? But for some reason I was able to figure that out. But then I also did open mic nights just to play other genres that's not blues. But when I discovered other jam nights of different genres, it was another level of fun for myself too, you know, like just going on drums, support other people, back up people on bass or guitar or piano, or, you know, of course I lead sets as well. I lead my own set at those jam nights. But this is another thing that has brought another sense of community, right? I made a lot of friends because of the local music scene of those kinds of events, especially with the open mic nights, man. You get to meet all different kinds of characters, different kinds of songwriters too. So that's the fun part, because I remember making, like, if you look at a lot of the guests that came to my wedding, when my wife and I got married, a big chunk of them are from the music scene, actually. And so... Actually, there's two people who've actually influenced me on the community side of things too for local music in Vancouver. One of them is my singing teacher. She is an amazing human being, for quite a long time, she actually owned a local live music restaurant. So it would be like jazz music every night. You know, so her husband would be playing piano, she'd be singing a bunch of songs, but then she always opens the mic to anybody that wants to come up. Even if you're not the best singer, she welcomes people to sing along anyways, right? So that's how lovely she is for doing such a thing. The other person too who I think is a great influence and has emphasized on community is actually one of my old music teachers. It was my old theory teacher. Him and his wife are both music teachers professionally. And when I went to watch their recitals, I wanted to see what new skills that they both passed on to new generations. And it's really cool because they teach people of all different ages, including not just, people as young as kindergarten, but I think my theory teacher's wife actually also taught this one senior citizen who was like, I think he's probably now in his 80s. And so he's 80-something years old, plays the ukulele and sings in public for the first time. And he's like, I remember him going to the mic, he's like, just so you know, I'm 80-something years old and this is my first time performing in public. And everybody just fell in love with him like you wouldn't believe it, And after he finished the song, everyone clapped for him, and it was just so beautiful seeing a moment like that. And again, this I think what really made me so happy about that experience was just because this is a community, and this is how we should be treating each other, regardless of how ugly the mainstream music industry can be. But it's just moments like that makes me want to bring that influence out to the rest of the world.
Okay, it's that time again. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on other listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place, and best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Music is straight from the heart. It's raw, it's real.
Yeah.
When it's real, it's real,
Yeah.
And I think that is a key element to the whole bringing a community together, is to open up.
Yeah, exactly.
Open up and share your heart.
Mm.
And I mean, I think music is probably one of the most beautiful ways to share your heart,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And the more I do these podcasts, the more I'm getting people on the show that they're playing music that is not necessarily particularly in the genre that I would choose.
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm listening to these people after I've talked to them and everything, it's like I hear the heart. I hear the heart. And the music is becoming beautiful to me. And I'm really getting excited about this. You were actually my third podcast of this year of interviews. And I still haven't had an American interview yet this year.
Right.
I'm actually kind of excited about that too. It's like it's just going beyond what I expected.
Right.
And with the music though, it's like what I like to say, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. Music says what words cannot,
Yeah.
And I think that's where like the introvert, when he goes to something like that, and he hears the heart of somebody, I think it helps to start cracking that heart open.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. There was somebody I once knew that said something like this on Facebook. He said that music is all about making connections, not, we're not talking about like corporate sponsorships or anything big like that, but it's all about people who enjoy the music that you've written. That's real connection right there. But even if you are playing in a cover band, like I have too for numerous years, even if they like you because it's the way you played the songs, that's still a connection in my opinion as well.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Because everybody leaves their fingerprint on whatever it is they play. I mean, It doesn't have to be their own song, but when they play it, they make it their own. Are you independent? Or
yes.
Are you? Okay.
So I'm a strictly independent, not signed to any label whatsoever. And then the only reason why I say this is because I'm really proud to say I'm independent because, of course, when we're all little kids, we always watch what's happening on MTV, or I guess in Canada, Much Music. That's our MTV, basically. But whenever you see all these music videos of your favorite stars and you watch all the interviews and all that, no one really knows. When you're a kid, you don't know what goes behind closed doors, right? Anyone who's not in the industry, they don't understand what goes behind closed doors. But then when you start learning so much that there's a lot of complicated situations in the business side of things that can get pretty ugly. And of course, I don't want to get into that, but I've been hearing, story after story after story from various artists, even people I know personally, people know who are locally here in Vancouver. And even Dick Dale said himself, the late, great Dick Dale, if you guys don't know, he's the one that wrote the theme song to Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
One of the most iconic theme songs. He said to himself to, don't sign with a label, and it's better to be independent because you have the rights to your music. You don't have to go through any complicated business barriers that will prevent you from, having all the earnings that you should fully deserve, because this is your art, this is your legacy. And so he gave a tip on that one interview on YouTube where he talked about how it's important for artists to get themselves out there personally too, right? Learning how to market, but learning how to be good, well-grounded business people themselves too. And it's true. It is very true that, if you're going to be independent, you got to think, you do have to think like a business person, but of course, do it in a way where, you still resonate who you are, but also knowing your worth at the same time, because the reality is that a lot of artists do unfortunately get taken disadvantage of, and it is very sad to see that. And then when you hear stories about lawsuits happening one after another, and yeah, it's just so terrible, because that's one of the things that does drive me insane, is that something that's so beautiful, that is music. The business side has perverted that in the mainstream industry, where a lot of things can go sideways. But knowing the fact that, with me being independent, it's like, yeah, I may not be doing a whole multi-million-dollar lifestyle, but at least I can appreciate that, my art, my legacy is preserved under my name, because this is something I've created myself. And same thing, how I respect other independent artists, like my local friends too. I'm thinking, you know what, despite that, maybe they're not big time millionaires themselves too, but you know what, I know when I hear their music, I give credit where it's due. This is their amazing art piece. This is their beautiful legacy that they printed in this town, and it's great to know that. For me, I like to support independent artists who are in the same boat as the rest of us are. And I'm so glad about that too, because when I connect with other local musicians, I know that I'm not alone.
Right. I feel the same way about that. Like, whenever my first release was last year.
Right on.
I had been writing that for so many years, and I say writing loosely because I do not read or write music. I'm dyslexic. I think I'm ADHD. I don't want to go get tested because I don't want to know.
Yeah, fair enough.
But the song that I wrote was Broken Resolution, and it was out of like pain and suffering and sorrow and all this stuff over the years that I just sat down and wrote it. And I felt like when it was time to release it last year, I didn't really want to at first because that just felt so personal. But when I did, I felt good about it. And then it's like that song was my baby, and with any song that I write and release, it's my baby.
Yeah.
And to think of signing on with a label with somebody else having rights, it's like, I don't want to put my baby up for adoption.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just, that's kind of how I felt like at the very beginning. I did talk to some other musician friends, and they were independent. They hadn't even looked at going the other route. And they told me, their reasons for it. And I was like, well, that's cool. And then I learned about DistroKid.
Yeah, because you were saying because the whole thing, like putting your song up for adoption, I'm just like, yeah, that's how I would feel too. But I'm just thinking, like, that's the other thing, because if I ever had that chance, like if the big tycoons were to contact me about what to do with my song, I think the only thing I would just request is, well, if you have enough in your budget to, push it out there to media and just keep it the way the song is, I'd be cool with that. But that's it. But to do something with the song itself, we could talk, but it needs to kind of go both ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds a lot like what Natalie said. She's like, there would have to be some major negotiation.
Exactly.
Okay, it's time to take one more quick break. This time, it's for you guys. Listen up to this next segment if you want to be part of the show.
If you'd like to record a question or comment to possibly be aired on a future podcast, just click the message link in the description of this episode or visit the Real Paul Show podcast on Anchor FM.
So, okay, it sounds like with what you're doing now, you have yourself pretty well situated. Is there a direction that you would like to go with your music for the future? Is there something more that you would want to do?
Yeah, for sure. Back in 2019, the summer 2019 specifically, I think I've been on the right path. I would say even going back to 2018. 2018, 2019, it's been quite the interesting path because I feel like I've started working my way up in the live performance side of things. I've been playing more local outdoor festivals, block parties, you name it. And I felt like I wanted to do more of that. Like I felt like I was finally at that point of my life where I can do outdoor festivals because, I love performing, but I thought it would be a cool experience just to, perform at a bigger scale, at least just to say I've done it and just be able to gain my following a lot more. And it's been such a great experience doing that for those last few years. When 2020 hit, I had no idea what to say at the time. Just like, oof, like this is such a big blow to the live music scene locally. And I didn't know what to do. But observing what other people have done, everybody went virtual, and so that's what I did. So I finally decided to make use of TikTok. I made use of Twitch, made use of YouTube. And so what I did with my YouTube channel is that I would just do like very unique covers of popular songs. And I just put it out there. I didn't expect like millions of views for that to happen, but I just needed some sort of outlet just to be able to showcase that I'm still active playing music despite lockdown life. But the great thing about that, though, is when I started utilizing TikTok a lot more, one of the videos that I posted that started getting such a huge following was my music lessons. Because of my years of experience playing cover bands and understanding the premise of TikTok. TikTok's premise was, when I initially used it, is you have 1 minute max to create a video. Mm-hmm. Right? And so it's not like YouTube where there's infinite amounts of minutes for yourself, right? But with TikTok, you're only limited to 1 minute. So what can you do? So I figured, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea if using my years of experience playing cover bands to teach people how to play songs that don't take a lot of chords to play? And you can do it in just under 1 minute. And I don't have to do anything, in full details. All I teach people on my videos is what chords to hit. As long as you're hitting that, that's the meat of the song. So here's these chords, and that's all you have to do, and that's the whole song. And that was it. And I had no idea that was going to gain me a lot of followers on TikTok. And so each video I posted in summer of 2020, it started getting more attention. And then before you know it, I started getting all these, thousands of followers, and I was able to do a live stream as well, because the way TikTok works is that when you gain a certain amount of followers, which is 1,000 followers to be exact, you can do live stream, and you can talk to strangers and your audiences. And and the more videos I posted, the more followers I started gaining, because these were really helpful lessons, because everyone's in quarantine at that time and they need something to do, right? Of course, there's a lot of guitar players, they want to build their portfolio as well. So that's why I created these videos. So I'm like, okay, well, how about this song? You can learn this one in under 1 minute. And I get a lot of comments from people saying, wow, this has been really helpful. Thanks for teaching us how to do this song, that kind of deal. So I thought that was a lot of fun. And now, so my account has now 42,000 plus followers and still growing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I just couldn't believe it. Like, But for me, I'm the type of person that wants to celebrate progress, right? Of course, I'm not like Vancouver's very own Call Me Chris. I'm not like her, who gained millions in just a short matter of time. I mean, with hers is a different beast itself too, right? But for me, because music lessons is such a different market itself, it's something that's a little bit, that it grows at a different rate, obviously, but there's still a market for it. And so I was really happy knowing that not only did it gain such a good amount of following, but I really felt like I've created like this really cool community of musicians who just want to learn songs. And so what I do on my live streams, I do a few different things, right? So I'd be either playing piano, I'd be playing guitar, or maybe I'm doing music Q&A. And for a little while, actually last year, I did a little podcast each week called Music Talk Mondays. And that's where I broadcast on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. And I just do like a topic in the first half of the show, and then the second half is open Q&A from the audience. And the open Q&A part was really engaging for me, and so people ask me all these different music questions, right? But I asked them too, what your favorite album is, what instrument do you play? Well, I guess that goes back to the whole thing of what I said about the theme of community, right? Mm-hmm. And it still circles back to what I've done locally, but now I'm doing this on a more international virtual scale, which I still can't believe is crazy, because I'm talking to people from different parts of Earth, like people from a good chunk of them are from the States. A lot of my followers are from the States on TikTok, but I do have some from Ireland, some from London, a few from Australia. I got some from Asia as well, and it's been such a really fun experience. But I think the one that really made me miss playing live, though, is on my TikTok. As you can see, I would do piano videos because you can use the duet feature. You can sing along to my piano videos, right? So that's the cool feature TikTok had. It would be like my piano karaoke segment, basically. That's what I call it, right? And I would see all these people use a duet feature and sing along to my piano videos, and it's so beautiful seeing that kind of stuff. But that made me miss doing live music, because prior to the pandemic, my cover band and we were hosting live band karaoke nights, and that was when we can get people to come up on stage and sing with the band. And that was, the next level to karaoke, right? Now you're actually having the rock star experience, and you get to know what it's like to be a musician, be a lead singer of a band. And we did that for the longest time for weddings, corporate parties, conferences, you name it, we've done it, right? Backyard parties too. And then I did a spin-off of that, which was piano karaoke night. And I had so much fun with that one too, because that was another a great event that brought people together. Everyone had a great time, and for that one I did the hosting, and I was the host and piano man for that one. And so it's almost like that experience. Think Vegas style dueling pianos meets karaoke. So that's what it kind of feels like, right? That's piano karaoke. But bringing that to TikTok, it was so cool to touch base on that on a more international scale. But it still made me miss doing that kind of stuff live. And this is where I was so sad to miss playing live music in front of people. But I know that in August of 2021, I finally had my first outdoor show back after such a long time. A friend of mine was hosting an outdoor shindig, because here in Vancouver, we can do outdoor events. So it's still, so that's still doable, right? Because like my friend needed some acts to play, and so he asked me, and I said, yeah, why not? So we had a if I can explain to you the set list, you'll get a clear idea of what we're talking here, right? So my set list consisted of Queens of the Stone Age, Jimmy Eat World, Kiss, Judas Priest, who else? Neil Young's Rockin' the Free World. So you get the idea of what kind of music we're talking here. And so the minute that we played the Ramones' I Want to Be Sedated, all these kids in the audience, they got a pit going like you wouldn't believe it. And it was so much fun. And even when we did Rock and Roll All Night by Kiss, all these kids in the audience, they were singing the lyrics to that like you wouldn't believe it. So it feels like you're at a Kiss concert, except it's outdoors in downtown Vancouver.
And so the direction that you want to go at this point is
doing more outdoor shindigs.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I really appreciate the fact that you're here listening to the same stuff that I am very passionate about. Now, this wraps up this week's episode, but next week we'll continue with Eddie's story. So I look forward to you joining Eddie and I, and I'll see you there.
Thank you for listening to yet another episode of The Real Paul Show. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode. And remember, do what you love with no regrets.